Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. We have Vinay Patankar with us today. Vinay is a CEO of Process Street. He's making work high quality and compliant at scale. He's backed by Axel, Salesforce, and Atlassian in New York, I believe, and I'm in Oaxaca. This podcast is presented to you by Top Leads Agency. It's my GTM firm. If you want cold email done for you and generate a bunch of results, you can get to topleads.agency. Vinay, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Sure. Thanks for having me. So I'm Vinay, CEO of Process Street. We are a compliance operations platform. So we help compliance and operations leaders not just manage their compliance and their policies and documentation, but also we connect the policy and compliance to the actual operations work and make sure that the work that's being done inside the organization is streamlined, is automated, and is following all types of internal and external compliance. So you could think about it as like something like a compliance product plus a kind of project management tool like Monday or something in that world. But it's kind of making sure that all the work that's being done across the operations platform is following these compliance and regulations. Yeah. So
right, and I've seen that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So we focus on mid-market and enterprise, and usually in what we call highly regulated industries or teams dealing with high stakes work. So we do a lot of financial services, a lot of real estate, healthcare, security, information security, things like that. Yeah.
Right, and I've seen that in your profile, you were in Australia at some point, and another you were in Hong Kong, and another San Francisco. So why travel so much across the globe?
Yeah, well, I was just going to ask you about Oaxaca as well. So I actually lived in Mexico for a couple of years. I grew up in Australia. That's where I'm from. I left Australia when I was young, early 20s, and just started backpacking around the world. During that time, I met a bunch of digital nomads and people who are building internet companies, and just kind of got the bug. And I'm like, wow, I can, my initial goal and just the thing that I was working towards was, can I just replace my normal kind of income that I was earning in Australia? I had a pretty good job, but just do that, with more location freedom and flexibility. And so I did that for 12 years. I nomaded around the world, lived lots of different countries and cities. And, it's just once you start, I didn't have a job. So I started running small businesses, and my first thing was an e-commerce store. And I launched a bunch of different like small companies and websites. But once you kind of flip from being an employee to being an entrepreneur, your ceiling just doesn't stop, right? You can just keep launching more products, growing your team, scaling, and it just can keep going forever. And so it was just, I started working on it, and I think that my income dropped from $150K to $30,000, right? Like in year one. And then in year two, maybe it was like $50,000. And so I took this massive initial kind of hit, but then over time, it massively surpassed like what I was making in my job back in Australia. And then I had no reason to go back, and I kind of had acquired all this freedom and was able to basically, take bigger bets and launch bigger products. And that's what ultimately led me to Process Street. But yeah, do you surf?
Your first startup? No, I don't. I don't yet.
We
can talk about that later on. Like in Puerto Escondido, there's nice waves, and obviously Australia's a haven for that. But why did Vitoto, your first official startup, I would guess, why did that one fail?
Yeah, so that was the first, bigger swing that I guess that I took after seeing some success in some of my bootstrapped companies. The main answer, the shortest answer is never got product market fit. So we just never built a product that retained users in to the right ratio that we needed to be able to continue funding it. It was it's a consumer product. It was to just quickly explain what it was social video tool. So it was something in the world of Vidi and Vine, and basically what TikTok ended up winning as like the market. But there was hundreds of different companies have attempted this like short form video, mobile first video type app since basically the iPhone 3G. And it took hundreds of iterations, and not just iterations on what the right structure was and the right way to create content and, you know, surface that content, but also like a lot of the barriers back then was, I think it was iPhone 4 when we were building it, and video just killed your battery. Nobody had unlimited data plans. And so it was just a poor experience. The upload and download was slow. And so just for many different reasons, bandwidth was expensive. Servers were way more expensive. So the experience to kind of like unit economics of the business was just completely off. And it needed both refinement on the product as well as you know, economies of scale and development in the technology for kind of a product like TikTok to find that sweet spot, which we should eventually did, but yeah.
And then you launched your software agency. So Blue Glass, was that what it was about?
That was more just like my holding company that held a lot of these different products and businesses that I was doing. And so, yeah, I did a whole bunch of stuff. Basically, I was a bit of a hacky kind of entrepreneur while I was nomading around. So I managed a number of different websites, e-commerce stores, content, video, like YouTube channels, stuff like that. I did consulting. I did a lot of data broking. So I was kind of like selling and moving data around the internet. And that was kind of like one of my hustles. And so just a bunch of different things. Each of them made me 1K a month, 5K a month, 7K a month. And I just kind of like had a few different projects and services that I just kind of like stacked up into a pretty healthy kind of nomadic business. Yeah.
And Process Street was sort of started on the back of the Vitoto failure.
Yeah, well, it's connected and disconnected. And so it's connected in just like my personal life story, in that I did get the bug for building software, and I really liked the idea of creating a product that people could get their hands on and use and added value, and versus just like reselling other people's products, which is what I was doing a lot of before. I didn't really kind of have that exposure to creating something myself. And so that I really enjoyed that process. I also just understood the math of like, if you own the product, the multiple of your business is a lot higher, right? Like you're building a lot more enterprise value. You're building something that when you sell it is going to be a lot more valuable than if you're just building a go-to-market engine that's reselling other people's products. The enterprise value of your business is a lot less. And so I understood that if I was going to work on something for another 5 or 10 years, I may as well be doing something that's going to build me a lot more enterprise value than just kind of be a service layer on top of someone else's product, really. So yeah, I was looking for other products to build after I saw that Vitoto was not going to make it. And Process Street was my next kind of product that was the thing that I wanted most for my own business. I switched from Vitoto was a pretty like, let's kind of do the social network thing, right? Let's kind of try to build this cool consumer app that just goes really viral, and we don't even really know exactly what problem it's solving. We're just going to kind of put it out there and see if it works. So I took I learned a lot of lessons from that, and I took a very different approach where I'm like, let's build something where I know it has a very clear problem that it solves. It's for a very clear, target customer. It has a very clear monetization strategy, not just hope to get a lot of usage and then hope to figure out ads or something in the future, right? So Process Street checked a lot of those boxes. And yeah, I basically started, while I was winding down Vitoto, I started pitching Process Street, and got a lot of good feedback on that. And that ended up, being the next thing that I worked on. Yeah.
You raised capital for that one. Are you generally bullish on raising capital, or do you think we can bootstrap in this AI era in which we can have a bunch of AI agents do the work in the background?
I mean, I think it depends on the type of business you're trying to build. Firstly, I think most businesses should be bootstrapped by, in general, 99% of businesses, right? So there's only 1% of businesses that are, have the potential to be hyperscaling, technology companies or whatever, right? That firstly even fit the category of should you raise money. So if you're not that type of business, then no, you shouldn't raise money. I think that for most of those businesses, like, when you're building a business that has the potential to be really large, billion-dollar business, multiple billion-dollar business, I don't see why you would do that on your own, right? Like, if you could do it with 2 people and some AI agents, but someone's willing to give you $50 million, then, and you're competing against 3 other companies that are also trying to do the same thing, and you're 2 people with AI, and they raise $50 million and they hire 50 people just as smart as your 2 people, and all those 50 people are using AI and competing against you with your 2 people using AI. I don't see why you would do that, right? Like, you're just going to do what you need to do to win against your competition, right? And I think AI is going to raise the bar for everybody, right? And so you're just like, okay, now we're 2 people with AI competing against 50 other people who also have AI, 50 other teams. So then what becomes the competitive advantage against like those 50 teams that are all using the same AI agents? It's like, well, they can raise more money, if they can go acquire customers faster, it kind of comes just back into the same race again, right? So I think there will be some interesting niches where people are able to kind of unlock businesses that weren't possible before, and you will see some, very successful small teams build some great companies for sure. But I think in the real large markets, right, it's like, who's going to be the team that, like, topples Salesforce or something? It's probably not going to be like 2 guys with an agent, right? Like, it's probably going to be some ex Oracle team or something that comes in and raises hundreds of millions of dollars and builds everything with AI, but builds this whole new thing that is like an automated AI Salesforce or whatever it is, right? But also can be sold to all the enterprises and handles all the security, and the government will use it, and right? And so, yeah, in general, I think that you're going to have all the same types of businesses that we have today. You're going to have super funded, huge businesses. You're going to have completely bootstrap businesses, but then there's going to be like maybe a new category of business that kind of is more of this fast growing, small team, AI kind of focused business. But I don't think that's going to take away from any of the other categories. I think it's just going to be additional, and like, there's just going to be more of everything, right? So that, yeah. That's what I'm thinking about.
The agentic phase in Process Street, is it coming right now? Because to me, it looks like a Zapier for enterprise, and Zapier is like definitely on that. But I think they've been falling behind in so many ways as of late. But tell me about the agentic phase in your actual software.
Yeah, so I'd say that where we started Process Street was, we're actually not a Zapier. We're more like human in the loop. So it's more like, how do you actually manage people and make sure that they are following the process, versus how do you just automate away the people from the process, is more of where our focus. So we don't really do processes where it's like you can just completely remove the human. All of our processes are around how do you augment humans in some way. And so that's why there's a lot of compliance stuff, right? It's kind of, you can't, for example, hedge funds and MIT's endowment, or a lot of VC funds are customers of ours, right? That's like one of our strong segments. And there's say compliance around if you manage a lot of money, you have to report if you make political donations to different political parties. Okay, this is like, so in your own personal life, if you went and you wrote a check and you gave it to someone, right, in the physical world, you would have to report that by law to your fund and to the SEC. There's no like agent that can do that, because it's like something that some guy went and he wrote a check and he handed this guy at a coffee table, right? Like, and so you can't automate that, but you still need a system for tracking it and logging it and giving it to the auditors in a way that makes sure that, like, reminds the humans every month, hey, did you happen to cut a check to a political organization this month? If you did, you need to report it here, FYI, right? And so it's not really work that can be like agentically automated, right? It's like making sure that the humans, as they're going around and operating in the world, are operating in a compliant way, right? So that's really the problem that we solve. But yes, we are kind of moving towards more agentic workflows and offerings. So where we started with the process management platform. So that's the core product that helps you streamline and automate these processes that we just talked about: forms, contracts, documents, approvals, making sure that the actual work that's being done is compliant. We then launched and we built and launched a document management system for like quality management. And so this helps you basically manage your policies and procedures. So if you want to be like ISO 9001 compliant or ISO 27001 compliant, which basically means that you follow certain quality standards. Like if you want to build a component for the iPhone, like if you want to be a supplier to Apple, you have to have this ISO 9001 certification. Apple won't let you supply to them if you don't have the certification that shows that the way that you do manufacturing follows this certain level of quality standard, right? And so they won't let you. So you have to have this certification to be able to do a lot of things, right? To have the certification, you have to manage all this documentation and all these policies and make sure that the documentation and the policies is aligned with the requirements of that standard. And so the auditors are going to check that every year and make sure that all your policies and documentation is up to scratch. And so, and there's all these rules around, like if somebody needs to change a policy, then it needs to go through this complicated workflow where there's different approvers and requesters and And so there's like all this complexity around managing things to this certain like level of requirement. And so that's the second product that we've built, is like the document management system that's fully compliant and lets you manage all your policies and keep and obtain and keep those certifications like ISO 9001. And then the third product that is, we've only been building for about a year, but it's, is our most nascent product, is an AI compliance agent. And so you can think about that. You've basically, most companies that are in a regulated space will have a compliance team. The compliance team is constantly watching the external regulations, like, oh, Trump just announced these tariffs. We need to make sure that we're compliant with those new tariffs now, right? So they're watching like the external environment, and understanding all the changes that are going on, and then they're making sure that internally that all the operations are following whatever's going on, right? So, oh, we need to enforce these tariffs. Now we need to go and we need to update our finance systems. We need to train our finance team. We need to train our sales team. We need to we need to do all these things to make sure that like the company is following these new changing regulations. And so our AI compliance agent is like a co-pilot to the compliance team, right? Where it's monitoring all the different regulations for you. It's watching all the work that's going on the platform. It's reading all your policies, and it's like, oh, hey, there was this change in regulation. We suggest you update the policy here. Also, now this employee onboarding workflow looks like this task is not compliant anymore. You should probably update this task so that it meets the new requirements. And so it's kind of like an agent that is augmenting your compliance team in a way. So, instead of needing 10 people, you don't need 5 people, or, you don't need to hire those next two people in your compliance team, because it kind of will automate a lot of the work that the compliance team is doing. And so those kind of 3 products together, the document management system, the process management platform, and the AI compliance agent, are kind of our compliance operations platform. And that's where the product is today. Yeah.
And what's your focus as a CEO? Like, since you have so many products, right? It's quite diverse. Like, what's your focus on a daily basis nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, that changes all the time, right? And it's whatever the most burning problem is. A big part over the last year has been actually the creation of this, the strategic change from being just a process tool to evolving into a compliance operations platform. So that's been a lot of actually where my work has been over the last couple of years, is like really talking to customers, understanding the market, looking through all of our data, repositioning the whole company, creating that vision and strategy for like, these are the next products we're going to be building. This is who we're going to be targeting. Really shifting away from a very horizontal tool to a much more focused problem that we're trying to solve, and be much more of like a painkiller in the business versus a vitamin. So that's been a lot of my work. Today, a lot of my work is around, like this year, a lot of my work is around building out our channel program. So um, our main go-to-market focus is going to market through our channel or through partners. And so, for example, now with the compliance focus, we are working with a lot of different ISO consultants or compliance consultants or auditors as potential go-to-market partners. And so, really working on building out that program, meeting and onboarding new partners, building relationships with our partners. And yeah, those partners are all the way from small individual consultants who are doing process or compliance or AI automation consulting, all the way up to PwC or Grant Thornton or these big consulting firms. Yeah.
And I see you also spend time building interesting content on your X and LinkedIn. How do you decide what to post? Is it like just about getting the most interactions in the AI space? Like, tell me a bit more about your content strategy.
Yeah, it's a work in progress. At the beginning, our strategy was very broad. So because we were this horizontal process product, we just went broad with a lot of templates, a lot of keywords, trying to target all the different processes that might kind of come up in any team or department inside a company. And that's the value, I guess, of being very horizontal, is you have this very wide net that you can cast in terms of different keywords and different industries and personas that you can go after. And so that was really our initial strategy. We got a lot of tens of millions of views through lots of different kind of SEO techniques like that. Now that we have repositioned, and this repositioning is like under a year old, where we're really like, okay, we're going to double down on this compliance use case. So now it's a lot more around compliance and targeting a few particular industries. So for us, it's financial services and real estate, or, tech companies. Those are kind of like our top ones. So it's kind of more around how do we be more of a thought leader and really talk to more specific ICPs like operations and compliance leaders, than it was more at the beginning, was more around traffic and followers and kind of doing a more wider approach. Yeah.
And yeah, last but not least, I just want to pick up one of your posts, that is interesting to me also as a digital nomad. You reposted the Zuckerberg interview in which he mentions that, yeah, like most Americans have like 3 friends in average and they want like 15. And Zach believes in the future in which AI companions are most of our friends. I also agree with that, by the way. I think it just takes a while to digest, and most common mortals aren't ready for this. But I do think that this is going to be the future. What do you think about digital AI companions?
I think they're going to happen for sure. How do I feel about them personally? How would I feel about, my future children, spending, 5 or 10 hours a day with an AI companion? I'm not, I think there's a lot of risk there, I guess. Especially because, it's the same kind of, it is, to me, it's just another form of social media, I guess, right? Like where you can kind of get access to, or even like another form of YouTube, you can kind of get access to something that's going to give you kind of infinite content and infinite feedback, right? In some way, and even in a more advanced way than you get from TikTok today. But the challenge and the concern with social media, and probably with the AI companions too, is like there's going to be a corporation behind them, right? And those corporations have incentive structures, and those incentive structures may not align with you as a user. And so that, there's a lot of risk when you are using something and what you want out of it is not necessarily aligned with what the creator wants out of it. And who knows what type of influence this has, right? Say there's like these AI companions where there's like 10 million like teenagers all talking to some AI companion. Like it wouldn't be that, be very easy technically for that product to subliminally, like, try to insert messages about how Taylor Swift is awesome to ultimately sell Taylor Swift tickets to a conference, like to a concert or something, right? Like it becomes very easy to start like pushing people's opinions in different ways when you have access to that. And technically, all it really takes is like an intern to go in and write a few lines of code for that to actually the entire experience with a model like that to change in one way or another, right? And so, I think that theoretically it's great. I think that if you can build something that is aligned with what the users want, it could be very valuable. But I also think there's risk there too. But it's gonna
Some kind
happen.
of parental control, and some kind of customization board, I guess, customized with the parents or the family's value or something like that.
You're gonna get the same problems you have in social media, right? And it's just like, there are plenty of old people who are manipulated by social media too, right? Like, so it's not
All the time.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a more
It
powerful.
will be a lesser problem, actually. I think it would be a net positive. But Vinay, thanks for showing up today. Where can people find out more about you and your company?
Yeah, just you can find us at process.st or just Google Process Street, or you can find me on Twitter at VinayP10.
So it's Vinay and Charles for another CEO